There's something magic about spaces like this, a quiet cottage, a warm fire, the feeling that someone actually lives here. And the craziest part? Every chair, every book, every wooden beam in this room started as nothing more than a sentence, a prompt. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I turned simple text prompts into the full interior of this stylized medieval home, from concept art to 3D models to a fully lit and animated Unity scene. No prior 3D skills required, no expensive software, just a bit of imagination and a pipeline that anyone can follow. So let's step outside for a moment, take in the ocean air, and then build up this cottage interior from the ground up. Welcome to the next part of our prompt to playable world. So I'm starting off here in 3D AI Studio's Image Studio, and I'm going to be mainly using their Nano Banana Pro model for image generation and editing. But you can use any tool really that supports Nano Banana or similar image editing models. The real key is you just need the editing and painting and prompt tweaking features. That's really what makes the concept art workflow click. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is use the style reference tool inside Image Studio. I'm uploading the exterior shot of the medieval cottage, the same one that I built in a previous video which I'll link above, and this is going to give us a consistent baseline for the look and feel of what we're going after. The same stylized wood, the warm tones, the slightly cozy fantasy aesthetic. Now I'll prompt it with something like, create the interior of what this stylized medieval cottage would look like. Wooden floor, simple furniture, props, chairs, all the details we'd expect inside the house. And I'll choose widescreen here, click generate, and let's see what we get. And as you can see here, when the rendering comes up, you might recognize some of the props and overall look from the opening cinematic. This image is basically our style blueprint, the reference we're going to use when we start generating all the individual props inside the cottage. Now some of you might be thinking, why not just turn this whole image into a 3D model with Image to 3D? And trust me, I've tried a lot. The technology is getting better, but Image to 3D models still struggle with scenes that have this many overlapping props, textures, and little geometry details. Usually end up with a single fused blob instead of a clean usable interior. So for now, the best approach is going to be to generate clean concept art, break it into individual props, and turn each one into a proper 3D asset. And the next thing I'm doing here is editing the image with a simple prompt. Remove all the props from this image. This will give us a clean, empty interior, just the walls, the windows, the wooden floor. Having this blank version makes it easier to understand the layout, and it gives a solid baseline for us to build from as we start generating and placing the individual props. So as you can see here, a few props were left over, so I went ahead and did a little bit more editing and just kind of gave it some more explicit instruction to remove that fireplace and those additional counters. So now that we've got an empty interior, we're going to want to go ahead and zoom out a little bit so we can see the full view of the interior of the house. And so I'm going to give it another prompt here to say zoom out to kind of show like a diorama view of the cottage interior, and that way when we go to render this to 3D, we can see all the sides. So this is perfect. This is just what we're looking for here, where, you know, we can see the three walls, and we'll be able to create a separate model for that fourth wall here to completely fill it in. But I'm going to go ahead and upload this image and put it into the Image to 3D tool here in 3D AI Studio. And I'm going to go ahead and click the Advanced tab and actually specify a pretty low face count here. So it defaults to 500,000, which is way too much. We're going to just do 10,000. This will keep our poly count on the lower end, but give it enough polys to at least generate something decent. So I did go back and forth on this a little bit and kind of had to clean up some of the walls, but after a little bit of tweaking, this was the model that I ended up with. So if you're doing this yourself, you might have to go back and forth a little bit, but it ended up pretty well. So next thing we're going to do here is we want to isolate one of the walls, like I was saying. So for that fourth wall, we want a separate model entirely that we can just kind of append onto the end. And as we get into this a little bit more, you'll see I actually end up going a completely different direction, but creating these models has been very helpful just to kind of give us a frame of reference. So the next thing that we want to do here is we want to start building out our props. And so to do this, I pulled back in our blueprint image here, the reference image with all of the props in it. And the first thing I'm going to say is, let's see if we can just prompt it to isolate one of the wooden chairs in the scene and just give it kind of like a clear view with a white background that's sort of optimized for 3D model generation. So my thought here is, let's do this for all the props, and So that turned out really well. It took that on the first try, and I thought, okay, great, let's do this for all of the other props. And in no time here, we're going to have all of the images of the props that we need to fill out our house. So I said, do it for the wooden barrels, do it for the fireplace and the chimney. But as you can see here, it didn't turn out too well. So the barrel doesn't have the right style. In the second one there, it kind of took the flooring out. So editing this whole entire image and asking it to isolate out individual parts was just not working too well. So my next thought here was, well, let's pull this image into GIMP and let's select individual parts. So this is a little bit of a manual process. It's a little bit tedious, but honestly, it's not too bad once you get started on it. And so I just started pulling out props. So I'm pulling out the pot, I'm pulling out the barrel, I'm pulling out the basket, the chimney, and things like that, and just copying and pasting them into their own separate images here. So this way, when we go into the edit mode in the Nano Banana model, it doesn't have to deal with all of the extra stuff going on the image. It's just kind of be able to kind of focus in on the main part of the image, which it ended up doing a lot better of a job at. So you can see I did, the plates, the barrel, even the stack of wood there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into the image editor here, and I'm going to grab each one of these one by one. And basically I'm going to use a very similar prompt to what I was doing before. And just now that it's kind of zoomed in and focused on just the piece that we're actually after, in theory, it should actually do a much better job of isolating the different props that we're trying to build out here. So saying isolate just the wooden bar and table, the sink and the counter, cooking pot, the stone chimney, and the fireplace. And as you can see here, after a little bit of tweaking, we're starting to get some pretty good results. So these are looking pretty good, and I'm pretty happy with them so far. However, you might notice that the style is a little bit off on some of them. So for example, this bench. And so what I did here is I pulled it back over, and I'm going to say make this bench match the wooden style of our reference image here. So this is kind of a circular way of going about. We isolated the bench out, and the wooden color and style kind of got lost a little bit. So we want to go back in and tell it we want the wood color and style of the house interior from image 2, and then you can see there in the top left, it turned out great. So I did have one more idea for creating props out of this image, and with this idea, there's no editing involved or anything like that. It's simply taking that original image as a reference image and then giving it a prompt to say, create, in this case, a stylized cooking pan that would match the color palette and style of the cottage interior here. So let's give this a try and see how it turns out. And as you can see here, this turned out really nice. This looks like a frying pan that could easily be hanging up on the wall of our cozy little cottage scene here. So this was just another kind of easy way to create props out of just using the source image and giving it another prompt to produce something here. So just kind of showing you here real quick what my dashboard looks like so far. We've got a lot of different prompts. I have a few different views here of the interior of the cabin. And then skipping forward a bit more here, you can see I created a few more props here, like a chest and a bookshelf and plate and sink and counter and things like that. So all right, now we're over here in Unity. I'm using a URP scene. This is Unity 6.2, and this is the exterior of the cottage that we created in a previous video. So first thing I'm going to do here is actually give two parent objects in the hierarchy there. So I have sort of like a house exterior and then a house interior object. It's just an easy way to organize all of the different moving parts of each piece of the house, and also to be able to show and hide them so we can see the inside and the outside kind of separately. So the first thing I'm going to want to do here is I'm pulling in that bottom model, the 3 walls and sort of like the diorama view of the cottage that we had created. And this is going to be kind of our frame of reference and our starting point for all of the rest of the cottage here. So kind of roughly positioning it around where the exterior of the cottage is. You don't have to get this exact. The idea here in game, by the way, is going to be the player would run up to the house and kind of click on the door, and that would sort of teleport him inside of the house. So there's not going to be this same seamless 3D space. This is just going to make it a lot easier for us to control the view and the scene like that. So that's the idea behind this. So I'm making the interior just a little bit bigger so we have a little bit more space to work with. But then you can see I'm just hiding that exterior part of the house for now so we can focus on the interior of the scene here. So now we're going to need a roof here. So I'm going back to the image editing tool here and using our baseline, our blueprint image. And we're going to use a prompt here again to say basically, create a vaulted interior wooden ceiling that matches the style. And you can see here we got a pretty nice start. It's looks like it would make sense as the interior roof of our little cottage here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this into the Image 3D tool and see what sort of model we can make with it. And while that's rendering, I wanted to also show this here real quick. So I made a wooden beam here, and I'm going to go ahead and actually turn this into a 3D model as well. And as you'll see here a little bit later, I'm going to show you how important this actually was in producing the interior of this house here. So I did have a lot of these image to 3D generations going on in parallel here. And I just kind of wanted to show you some of the results of these. Most of these I set at around 5,000 polygons, between 5 and 10,000, and all of them turned out pretty solid. So these were just some of the props that I ended up creating to put inside of our house here. And so here's that roof that we were generating before, and you can see it looks okay. The texture on the inside doesn't look great. And so I wasn't quite sure how to handle that yet, but my plan was just to basically get it in the scene and see how it looks and kind of go from there. So once I've generated a few of the major props, I'd like to start placing them in the scene right away. None of this will be final, but I'm really just kind of sketching things out and getting a feel for how the space flows. Seeing everything inside the actual cottage helps me kind of visualize what's missing. Maybe the corner looks empty, or the floor needs a rug, or maybe we need more shelves or plates or something on the walls. You don't really get that sense until you just start dropping things in. And so if you've been watching my channel for a while, this is all a learning process for me too. I'm not a professional environment artist or anything like that. I'm kind of figuring this out as I go, one project at a time. That's honestly my favorite part of this whole AI assisted workflow, because you really don't need like 10 years of experience to start building something that looks cool. You just try things out, adjust, move things around, and the scene just slowly starts to come to life. So, don't feel like you have to get everything perfect on the first try. Your first pass is allowed to be messy. Mine always is. The important thing is just kind of putting the pieces in the room and seeing how they feel. And hopefully by watching me do this in real time, it kind of shows that if I can make a cozy little cottage interior like this, you absolutely can do it too. It's all about experimenting, learning as you go, and building little worlds one prop at a time. And so as we finish up here, as I was doing this, I kind of noticed that the floor really did not look right. I didn't like the texture. The geometry was a little wonky, and I thought, why are we bothering with a rendered floor like this when we could just use like a flat plane or a terrain object and apply a texture to that instead? So here we are back in Image Studio, and I did some editing again to pull out just the flooring there. So we're going to make a texture, right? So I'm in this website, Image Online, and I'll post a link in the description. But basically, what this will do is you can upload an image to it, and it'll produce seamless texture for you so that you can tile it and use it for terrain objects and things like that. So now we've got a nice wood floor texture. We can pull this over into Unity. So over in Unity here, I've added a terrain object that just goes right around where my flooring is here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that floor .png file into my Unity project. And then in the settings here, just make sure that wrap mode there gets switched from clamp to repeat, just to make sure it tiles appropriately. So with your terrain selected here, you just go to create layer, and then you just choose that image that tiles, and it'll auto tile it for you here. So you can see, that's looking a lot better than what we had before. So now getting back to our walls, I decided to delete that diorama kind of model that we had since we've got a floor already here. And we have the single wall as well. So obviously the idea here, now we can just create 4 of these and kind of have them placed all around on either side. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And then on the ends here, I did duplicate one more up on either side, just to cover that triangular gap there. So from the inside, obviously, you're not going to see any of that kind of sticking out. But I was positioning this and again looking at these beams and going, what am I going to do about all these beams crossing each other all over the place? This is not matching up very well. I'm just really struggling to kind of get these models to line up and look the way that I want them to. So remember that wooden beam that we created a little while back? After taking a look at this, I decided it was time to bite the bullet and build this thing from scratch. So, having the original AI generated wall in the background is super helpful because I can basically treat it like a sketch. I'm just following the outlines and mashing the angles and using it as an easy guide so I don't have to reinvent the whole layout. And this is one of the tricks that I've been leaning into more and more. Instead of trying to fix every little issue in an AI model, I'll just grab the good parts like the single clean beam and rebuild the rest around it. It gives you way more control over the geometry, and you end up with something that's way nicer to work with inside of Unity. So once the beams are shaped and snapped into place, I can delete the old model completely and replace it with a simple flat wall surface. It's cleaner, it's lighter, and it's just a lot easier to texture later on. And because the beams follow the reference, you still get the same stylized look we started with, just way less messy under the hood. A lot of this workflow is, like I said, really just me kind of experimenting as I go. I'm not like a professional 3D modeler or anything like that. I'm just figuring out what works one project at a time, and that's sort of the point of this channel. I just want to show you that you don't need to be perfect with your modeling skills to build something cool. You just take the parts that work and rebuild the parts that don't, and slowly the whole scene just starts to come together. So if you're starting out and things feel rough or inconsistent, don't worry about it. This hybrid approach of using AI for inspiration and then cleaning things up by hand, it's totally doable. And, if I can make something like this one beam at a time, you absolutely can too. So up next here, we're going to head back into Image Studio and take another look at this roof here. So I'm doing another prompt to get rid of those beams underneath it and just get kind of the top 2 parts that we can put on top of our model here. So I created this image and then did another image to 3D rendering. This one I did, I think probably about 10K polys just to give it the detail that it needed. And so you can see here, I spent a little bit of time resizing, adjusting it, trying to get it into a spot where it looked like it fit with the rest of the house. But I think you can see where this is going. So after a few bits of trial and error, I again bit the bullet and decided, you know what, it's not going to be that much extra work to turn this into kind of a handcrafted roof as well. So once again, I'm going to go ahead and put together, I'm literally using the exact same beam model here for all of this. I'm just stretching, resizing it. You can see I'm kind of turning it around a little bit to get the wood grain to look slightly different, but here's the end result. It really only took a few minutes with having that roof model there as a reference to kind of just match the look and feel of it. I was able to put those beams together really quick and put together a really nice looking ceiling there. So this last bit here, I just wanted to show you kind of putting together the last few pieces of the props here. These are some models that I put together with some additional images using a few of those techniques that I demoed earlier on in the video. And as we finish this part up, the last little bit I wanted to show you here is the cooking pot. So once again, we need a little spit here to hold this up, and our good friend, this beam, is going to also act as a little spit here to hold our pot up above the stove. So like I said, you use what you got, and in this case, we had a piece of geometry here that just fit, it matched. And as you're looking around this cottage, it's not like you can tell that it's the exact same being used everywhere because the textures are a little different on each side. And like I said, I kind of rotated the pieces around, so it all really kind of fits naturally. So we've got our pot hooked up here. We've got the spit all set and ready to go. And now it's time to add some fire to our scene. So for this, I'm going to use a Unity package that's available in the asset store. It's called VFX URP. It's free. You can grab it if you just have an asset store account. And so I'm going to go ahead and download this here. I'll post a link for this in the description. But in general, for projects like this, I try not to expand my scope too much and do something like create my own fire from scratch. So taking advantage of free assets in the asset store is definitely, I think, the way to go for things like this. So what I usually like to do when I get a package like this is I'll obviously download and install it and import it into the project, but most of them come with a demo scene. So what I'll do here is actually drag the demo scene into the scene that we currently have open. And this will just give you a chance to take a look and see what all is in there. So I can go ahead and double click on one of these fire models here and see what it looks like. And sure enough, this fire looks great. It looks like it's going to match, both our fireplace area as well as the fire pit that we have for the pot. So back over here in our little cottage scene, I'm just going to say move to view. So now that this VFX fire object is in our scene, we can just drag it over and get it right into our fireplace here. And then we'll go ahead and do the same thing for the pot here and put some fire underneath the stove and just have it kind of coming up from underneath. Now, one of the things that I ran into when I was doing this part of it, as you can see here, once you have the fire underneath it, the flames were going straight through the pot, which obviously you don't want. So I played around with using a collider a little bit to stop the flames from going through, and I really struggled to get that to look the way I wanted it to. And so in the end, I just decided to keep it simple and reduce the lifetime of the fire particles. You can just change the lifetime of how long those particles actually last for, and that ended up being the easiest way to handle this. So, if you do some Google searching or ask ChatGPT about these things, a lot of times they'll give you the complex, go make a collider and make the flames kind of dance around the pot type of solution. And sometimes maybe it's worth it, but in this case, going with the simpler route was a lot less of a headache. And so now that we've got our fire in place, we need to, first we're going to actually add this model for the fireplace itself. So this is another one that I generated to kind of put underneath our flames here. But after we get this in place, what we're going to do is add some lighting so we can get some nice glow and ambience in the room. Because right now, the only type of light that we actually have is the ambient light from outside, and we want sort of that nice warm cottage type of glow. So what I did for this is I didn't feel like coding this up from scratch myself, so obviously we've got these coding agents now, we've got ChatGPT, so I just went ahead and asked it to make me a Flickr script, and I'll provide a link to this in case you want to grab it and use it yourself in your own scene. But yeah, here we go. It's very simple, just an easy way to kind of get that flicker effect. So it gives you instructions. You just want to add it to a point light or a spotlight. So I just copy this over and put it into my project. And then back in our Unity scene here, you can see I'm adding a point light and just giving it the name of Firelight so I can remember what it's actually being used for here. And I'm going to go ahead and move it right over here underneath the fire. So we want it kind of glowing right in the middle there. So that's a pretty good spot for it. And then, like I said, I have that script that I could just attach. So let's go ahead and run the scene here, and it looks like we're getting a nice cozy look to our cottage here with that light. Certainly gives a little bit better ambience to the room. So I'm gonna copy the light over here and put another one right underneath our pot. We want this to look and feel like we've got kind of a glowing fire going underneath the pot as well. So we can use the same one. We want the same glowing, flickering fire effect. So you can see there, both of them are kind of glowing and flickering. It looks like they're emanating light. One thing you'll notice is that the light is kind of shining through some of the geometry. So you can see the back wall behind the fireplace there, and that's because we actually haven't set the light to cast shadows yet. So we're going to need to go ahead and do that real quick. So you can see here I have the light selected, and then under shadow type, we're just going to change it to soft shadows. You can choose soft or hard. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing here with the stove light over here. So you can see that difference once I change that and see how I move it around a little bit. It casts shadows around all the different pieces of geometry that are around it. So go ahead and run the scene here again, and that's looking a lot better. So you can see the light's no longer shining through the geometry, and that's kind of the look that we're going for. All right, so back to our window here. So I wanted there to be some light kind of shining in, like some of those nice bright sunlight beams. And in order to do this, we're not going to be able to use the exterior window that we had there. So you can see what I did there is just kind of broke up the geometry, and then I created this open window model, again using the same prompt techniques that we did earlier in the video. And this is going to just slide right into this little opening that I constructed by kind of piecing up the wall there a little bit and making a little spot for it to fit in. So I decided to move it around a little bit so it's opening outside. And now what I'm doing, you can see I have the material selected for it, and I'm just adjusting the color a little bit to try and get it to match a little bit closer to the wooden beams inside of the house here. All right, so the next thing we want to do is get the nice God rays, the sunlight kind of shining through the window here. So I found this idyllic stylized 3D art package on Unity. It's totally free again, so you can just grab it from the asset store. And I pulled up the demo scene and took a look at what the God rays look like inside of here. And they were just about what I was looking for. They're actually using particle effects here to get kind of those beams of light animated, kind of shining through like that. So again here, I'm just going to drag the God rays right into my scene by pulling the demo scene in as a sub scene, and then get them kind of positioned inside of the window like you kind of saw in that opening scene. So let's go ahead and run it and see how it looks. And yeah, sure enough, I think we're just about there. And so one small little thing that I added here towards the end was this particle system here to give kind of those floating dust specks that you might have seen in the opening scene. So all this is a particle system, and I have this little ambient dust script here, which I'll share in the description. You just attach it to a particle system, and it creates those floating little dust particles to give that ambience. And that's our little cottage, built piece by piece from nothing but a few prompts, a handful of free tools, and a lot of curiosity. Every time I make one of these scenes, I'm reminded that you really don't need years of experience to create something beautiful. You just need a place to start, and the patience to take this next small step. If you learned something here, or this inspired you to try building a world of your own, I'd love to see what you make. Thanks for hanging out with me in this cozy space. If you want to join me again for the next project, whether it's characters, environments, or maybe something completely different, feel free to stick around. Until then, keep creating, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.